So much for coming. I know this is a big time commitment for you to come out for the week, but we got a lot of exciting things planned, as Drew talked about, and I'm super excited to be able to spend this time with you. So I'm going to start off, again, this one. All right, so in terms of what we're going to talk about today, I want to start off kind of at a high level, talking about our mission, our vision. I think it's important because really that provides the context for all the decisions we make. It's the context for who we hire. It's the context for the decisions we make kind of in the moment. But it's also the context for how we think about the business over the long term and where we're going with the business. And so I think it's good framing for everybody to kind of see how we think about things from that standpoint, because it does color all of that. After that, we're going to double click kind of on 2022, and I would theme that as a year of investment, and we'll talk about that. And then I'm going to turn it over to Clark and talk about some data that we pulled across the base that I think will be pretty insightful in terms of trends, benchmarks that we're seeing kind of across the industry. And the context for that is I get questions from providers, folks like you, your investors, other folks in the industry, and everybody kind of wants to know, like, we're seeing certain trends, certain themes in our business. Is everybody else kind of seeing the same things? And so we thought, pulling the data on an aggregate basis will allow you to kind of see, how the things that I'm seeing in my business, how does that benchmark against things that are others are seeing, or at least more broadly within the customer base. So Clark's going to talk us through that. And then we'll go to a high level 2023 kind of roadmap and priorities. So Cheryl and team are going to go into much more depth with the roadmap and where we're going in 2023, but this will give kind of some high level themes for you. So we'll dive in. So when it comes to our mission, obviously you have to have some context for that. The context, for ours is really rooted in all the dynamics that we see kind of in the market, things that you guys live and breathe every single day. So first and foremost, capacity constraint. So there's more individuals that need help, and that number is growing, than we can provide help for, and that's because there aren't enough providers like you. You're not able to staff the way that you want to, and so that's a capacity gap that we need to close. Technology can help, but there's other things that we need to employ to try to help that. Exacerbating that issue in the most near term is the fact that it's now more expensive and harder to hold on to your staff than it was before. And reimbursement rates have been held relatively flat. So that adds another dimension, another challenge to the business. So those are things that as we look at the 23 roadmap and beyond that we factor in more broadly. In addition to that, compliance, regulatory kind of constraints or requirements are increasing as the industry matures, right? So check sizes are getting bigger from the payers. The industry is maturing. Every healthcare kind of segment has gone through this. But what does that do? It saps capacity. So on top of the fact that we're capacity constrained, now we have another constraint that saps capacity, and that also is something that as we think about the roadmap that we factor in to try to help navigate. On the positive side, digital tooling, content, have increased in usage, in adoption, and that's a good thing. Certainly COVID was a driver of that, but that's continued. And I think, when you think about the benefits of that, efficiency of your staff, the fidelity of the data that you're capturing, because you're not doing something on paper and putting it in a system and then taking it out of the system and putting it back on a piece of paper and losing things along the way. All those things are benefits that can be had kind of through this. And so that's, I think, a positive trend and certainly something we're investing behind. And then finally, technology is just continuing to kind of evolve. And I think the benefit of that is that it creates new opportunities, new functionality, new things that we can roll out that help you kind of manage margins, help you become more efficient as you lean into those technologies. And finally, at the bottom, this isn't the vast majority of you are providers who are providing kind of services in clinics or in home, but whether it's in that setting, whether it's in schools, or it's on the adult side of things, like the capacity constraint and the challenges are consistent across the board. So that's what informs our mission. Our mission really hasn't changed, certainly since I've been here in 2018, and that was just a tweak from where it was before. And so I think it's important, again, as I said, to kind of understand the context, which is really to provide a complete end-to-end software solution and services that wrap around it for folks like you, people who are working with individuals with ASD and IDDs, and to help you unlock potential, achieve better outcomes, and allow them to live more independent lives. So that, in a nutshell, is how we make kind of all of our decisions. And how do we bring that to life? It's through our secure end-to-end integrated platform, having powerful functionality, but making it intuitive, actionable analytics as opposed to just data dumps. Those are areas that we have been investing in and will continue to invest in and improve over time, and you'll hear Cheryl talk a lot about that. And I think those are things that can help you, again, be more efficient, make better decisions, drive better outcomes. Internal expertise, within our staff. So I am biased, but I feel like we have great folks. Spent a lot of time bringing great folks in, but we also have a large number of great folks who have been in your shoes, BCBAs, RBTs, SLPs, OTs, and that's been by design, not by accident. And I think it's critically important for us, not just from a product standpoint, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but we want to make an impact on the industry. And I think having those talented folks on our team allow us to be able to kind of do that in a bigger way. And then finally, wrapping around the technology services like our Bill Max service, CR Institute, things that can help you get more out of your organization or offload things that you don't want to deal with. You have to deal with billing, but those are things that you can offload and then focus on kind of delivering the care that you want to deliver. And so it's not all services. We don't want to be everything to everybody, but select services like that can help you kind of ramp up and be more efficient. So when you think about the context of mission and what that drives, first and foremost for us, it drives our culture. And culture really, is an output. So you can't actively manage a culture really. You manage the inputs, and the culture is the output that you get out of it. And it all starts with what do you want to be when you grow up, which is your mission. And so for us, we take that as the starting point, and we layer onto it our core values. And why is that important? Well, I think as you've interacted with folks here, interact with folks on the phone or through Zoom, again, I'll go back to my bias, but we have good people, really good people. They're super smart, but they're not brilliant jerks. And they're that way because they're compassionate, they have humility, they want to do the right thing. And this is what we look for when we hire folks. So this is the context for making decisions about who we hire, who we don't hire. What we celebrate, what we don't celebrate, and what we tolerate and what we don't tolerate. And we have exited a number of folks that I would say kind of fall into the brilliant jerk category, unfortunately, who are super talented technicians, but just were not kind of right for our culture. So we're not perfect, and you'll hear me say that probably 15 times in this whole thing. We are not perfect. We don't have a perfect culture. We got all kinds of things that we can do better. But I think at the root of it, this is what we shoot for. And I think as a result, we got really talented, good folks that are the ones that are really doing all the work and driving the business and helping to make your experiences better each and every day. we layer into that kind of a framework that I used in my last company, WorkWave. I call it Big Four because I'm not very good at branding, but they're very easy to remember, which is also a hallmark for me. I have to have stuff that's like on PowerPoint and easy to remember. Very hard to do, right? And so again, not perfect. We got a long way to go to get to where we want to. But as we think about kind of what we need to do, our North Star as a business, it's really around getting the right people in, keeping them, and helping them develop. It's about continuing to evolve the product and try to do it as fast as we can. It's about turning customers and employees into raving fans, which again, we got work to do. And it's continuously kind of working to invest in the infrastructure and the systems so that we can continue to scale and actually get better as we grow as opposed to get worse as we grow. And so this is something that we review at the board level all the way through the company to try to maintain alignment. And so when you put those three things together, that's what allows you to kind of get the output. So again, not perfect, but our mission really is the thing that kind of helps us kind of know what we need to do and make sure that we stay true to what it is that we want to be. And as a result, I think you get to work with some really talented people because of it. The other thing our mission drives is choices and investments that we make around who we want to be when we grow up. And so, when I joined, we had Central Reach. We were the leading EMR for ABA providers. We are still the leading EMR for ABA providers. We're not moving away from doing any of that because it's squarely in our mission. But we've evolved, right? So we now have a BehaviorSoft platform that's really geared and tuned to the small business because it's really hard for a platform like Central Reach to support the largest of the large organizations who have very kind of complex needs, but be easy enough to use and comprehensive for the smallest businesses. And so we made that acquisition. It's been wonderful. And we've been kind of growing that. And again, it's collectively, when you think about the mission, it's around serving all segments. And so we made a commitment to kind of do that and try to do it in a way that would be valuable for each and every one of our customers. We layered on to kind of the core EMR, the capability to handle multi-D and EI. Again, more work to do. It's on the roadmap. It's things that we have kind of that we'll continue to invest in over time. But why do we do that? 30% of our clients are providing other services besides ABA, OT, speech, and other services, and that number is growing over time. On the education side, we have a number of customers already that are using our platform in the education space. And it's well suited for some, especially the largest enterprises. So we have Hawaii Department of Education here. It's like as a system of record for a sophisticated implementation, it's phenomenal for that. But for smaller districts and others, there are opportunities for us to kind of have a purpose-built platform for that. So we made an acquisition of Lifted earlier this year. We pair that with the assessment acquisition that we made, the CR Elements acquisition that we've done, and several of our other acquisitions to really create a differentiated platform for education. Why do we do that? Because our mission is to help provide technology in all settings, and one of those settings is the pre-K through 12. So on the adult kind of side of things, this is an area that is growing. It's an area that's significantly undertooled. And as a result, it's an area that really is almost like a travesty when you think about the employment rate of individuals who have ASD and their ability to kind of participate in the workforce. Like, it's just terrible. And so we made an acquisition of Avail to really provide a platform to allow job coaches and others who are working with young adults in the school setting transitioning to learn how to get a job and interview and then be successful once they get that job, it requires different tools. It requires a different workflow. It requires different things than what was out there. And so that was the investment that we made. Again, along the same lines of our mission or staying true to it. And then finally, parent training. It's been on our list for a while. And we've had a number of priorities. And now I think we're at the point where with some of the work that we're doing on the curriculum side and other things, partnerships that we have, that we can provide tools to allow you to provide better services from a parent training, allow you to maximize authorization usage, which is very underutilized, and allow you to engage the parents in a better way so that they can be better partners to help the kids get better outcomes. So at a highest level, that's our roadmap, right? So obviously there's a lot of devil in the details, but that's where we're going. And to build that, or build toward that, we've made a number of acquisitions. So, when you think about, again, going back to the mission, we have competitors that, are broad-based behavioral health. That's how they want to grow, right? We have other competitors that do things in the corporate benefits market, and that's how they want to grow. That's like totally fine. It's part of their mission. But our mission is really focused on you. It's to provide technology to you to be able to serve individuals in each of these different settings, and to do it in a very kind of powerful and effective way. And so as we think about the acquisitions, it's not about buying kind of customers or aggregating things all together to try to get scale. It's all things where we see entrepreneurs who have a passion for doing something that we want as part of our platform, to bring their products in-house, bring them in-house, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, and take advantage of their knowledge, their expertise to be able to kind of have 1 + 1 = more than 2. So I'm focusing on the kind of CR Enterprise, the therapy provider platform. Here we have one as well for education. And I'm not going to go through, there's a lot on here, but if you peel back the onion one layer from what I showed previously, now there's a whole set of functionality that comes into play. And this is really kind of how we think about, again, the roadmap at the highest level. Now, again, you peel this back, and that's what Cheryl and team will be talking about, is what are we going to do specifically kind of within these and within each of these different areas? What are the features and functionality that we're going to be kind of highlighting or prioritizing. And Clark's going to talk about this a little bit more, but when you think about things like cash flow margin, the work that we're doing with Schedule AI, Bill Max, the RCM work that we're doing, the parent training, all are designed to help you kind of manage some of the challenges from a margin and a cash flow perspective. On an outcomes basis, the acquisitions of AFLS, Avail, the curriculum that we're doing, also you'll see a lot of work on that over this quarter and into 2023 to really integrate that in a more kind of powerful way so that you can take advantage of that, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in a bit. But and then there's obviously a whole number of things that we're going to be doing with platform stability and architecture and all those kind of things. But in general, when we think about themes, it's really about what are the challenges you're dealing with and what are the things that we can reprioritize within the roadmap to help you navigate those challenges. So as we double click on 2022, before I kind of get into some of the investments, I thought it's good just to give context, level set in terms of kind of where the business is at. For each of you, especially for those that have been here previously. So we are the #1 provider of autism and IDD care, probably 4x the next kind of EMR provider. And as a result, there's a lot of claims that flow through our system. 6 billion claims are flowing through the system today. 40% of the learners who are receiving services, so I talked about all the learners that aren't receiving services, but for the ones that are, 40% of those are receiving services by somebody that's using Central Reach as their platform. We have 3,000 customers today, which is up from about 500 in 2018, almost 140,000 active users. And in terms of the dimension of the customer base, it does kind of run the gamut. So 2,300 organizations with less than 50 employees, 100 with more than 250 employees, and over 20 that have more than 1,000. So the vast majority of the larger providers in the space are using Central Reach as their platform. So in terms of how that's kind of progressed from a growth standpoint, we've been lucky and blessed, I guess, to be able to grow over the last years. And I think that's a direct result of the investment that we made, the people we've hired, the decisions we made. And when you think about the investment that goes with that, our employee base now is going to top over 400 at the end of the year, up from about 80. And I'll go into a little more detail of how that kind of splits out. And our comp expense is just like with you, hard to find people. The people we're hiring are in high demand, and it's hard to retain them once they stay. So everybody's got to stay. If you're here, as part of getting here is you have to sign away your life for at least another year or two, so we can hold on to folks. And we've won some awards. It's not what we're here to do, but I think for the team and all the hard work, the recognition is certainly beneficial. We've had really good stability at the exec level, and I think that's important. I think stability in an organization all the way through is important because that's what allows you to be consistent in kind of the theme and the roadmap over a longer time frame, without kind of changing. And, now we have a new idea and whatnot. That being said, as you grow, and you guys deal with this just as much as we do, when you're growing and scaling your business, the business is very different today than it was 2 years ago for many of you, right? And that's very different than it was 2 years prior, and that's the same way it is for us. And so for you to be able to be successful to get to the next level, and for us to be able to do that, we need people that have seen that movie before and can kind of help us get from where we are to where we need to be. And so there are certain key areas, obviously, in every business. For us, technology is one of those. So we hired Sean at the end of 2021 to come in and level up what we're doing on the technology side. We needed to up our game. We needed to improve the way that we were doing things. We needed somebody that knew how to reprioritize, re-architect, reorganize, and do it in the context of not losing track of what it was that we were doing previously. And so Sean's come in and done an amazing job. There's more to do, a lot more to do, but when you look at where we are today versus where we were when he came in, markedly different. On the customer-facing side, Clark joined us at the beginning of 2022, and he has responsibility for all of customer support, customer success, implementation, professional services. Again, an area that we really needed to kind of up our game, and we needed to up our game now, and we needed to do that so that we are in a position to actually be able to continue doing that as we scale, right? It gets harder the bigger you get. So Clark, again, somebody who's seen the movie at our scale, at a higher scale, and has come in and has made a big impact. There's a lot more, again, to do, but we're on the right track. And Drew joined us at the end of Q1, and he's got responsibility for sales, account management, which is also part of the kind of customer experience, and certainly is something that we felt like we needed to kind of level up, if you will. The other thing I will say, I guess, before I go off that slide, I don't know if I can go back, it doesn't matter, is, when you look at the kind of profile of the team, more macro, it's a combination of people with technology, SaaS kind of backgrounds and understanding how to scale businesses that have nothing to do with healthcare, but are software businesses. It has people that are in other healthcare categories, like Cheryl and Sean, Drew, who've seen the movie, again, in different categories, but as they think about the context for our community, can bring some of those learnings in. And then that's supplemented with all the subject matter experts that we have kind of on our team, across our team, who know the space inside and out. And I think that's important as well, is how you think about kind of crafting that team. So I talked about Sean and Cheryl. Many of you have spent and know really well. But what bringing Sean in allowed us to do is to really take Cheryl and get her focused on product, which is where she wanted to focus. And so now you've got two seasoned leaders, one very focused on product, one very focused on technology, who also worked together, by the way, before, and are great collaborators as a result at Evolent. And so that allows us to move a lot faster, make better decisions, and you'll see kind of the benefits of that as we go forward. We've made significant investments in this area. As I said, across the business, we made a lot. For context, we don't put the numbers on there because it's kind of not something we generally share, but it's $30 million or so in R&D that we spend in 2022. So again, for context, it's more than the revenue of our nearest competitor. So we got a long way to go. We got a lot of stuff that we need to do, but we're investing significantly, and we'll continue to do that to improve both the performance of the product as well as the functionality and what we bring to you. And we got a lot of people, so all those faces down there. 103 folks just in R&D. 20% increase in DevOps, DBAs, and QA. So it's a lot of jargon, but essentially think about all the people that care and feed the servers, the data, the back end of the system, the performance of the product is what DevOps and our DBAs are kind of focused on, and optimizing that. So not only do we increase it by 20%, about half of that team is new. So again, thinking about bringing in and leveling up across the organization, it wasn't just the 3 folks that I highlighted. It's within the teams, we've also brought in people who can really help us do things differently so that we have better results. Over 30 releases and hotfixes. And in terms of scale, today we're doing across the platform 200 million transactions a day, which is significantly more than it was at the beginning of this year, and that's a significant load on the system. But we've grown and increased the load while we've increased performance at load. And again, this is something that we'll continue to kind of invest in and you'll benefit from. And then finally, it wasn't just the software side of it, the data optimization, all those kind of things, but from a hardware standpoint, we've really optimized the infrastructure at AWS and really increased significantly. The IOPS is just essentially input and output. So when you click a button, data goes in. You click another button, data comes out. There's a lot of those things that are going on. And they put demand on the system, and that's essentially kind of the hardware can help, but software and optimization is important as well. On the customer experience side, I did talk about Clark. Alicia is here as well. Super talented, super awesome. Both Clark and Alicia work together at iCIMS, another company that has scaled, and like I said, seen the movie before. Alicia has responsibility for all of customer support, customer success, and she's done this, like I said, successfully before, and that's a critical kind of thing that we were looking for. Now here we've continued to invest, but the step change in terms of investment between last year and this year is significant. And again, we'll continue to kind of invest and grow to really make the customer experience much better than where it is today. And where it is today is much better than where it was. So 84 folks on the customer experience side. So going back to that headcount, vast majority of our headcount outside of Bill Max, which is separate, in the software side is in customer experience and in engineering. And that's what you want. 50% increase in support staff, which has driven down response times by 30% and driven down time to resolution by 22%. So if you ask Clark and Alicia, are we where we want to be? The answer would be, no, we're not where we want to be. We need to be better than where we are, but we're definitely moving in the right direction, and investments we're making are going to allow us to do that. So the last slide I have, and then I'll turn it over to Clark, is around thought leadership. So I mentioned this before. As part of our mission, again, we don't want to be a provider, but we want to support the industry in every way that we can, right? And so it starts with bringing in all those talented folks who know the space inside and out. So we have 55 BCBAs, OTs, SLPs, RBTs on staff. 10 of those are BCBADs. Super smart thought leaders, and we're lucky to kind of have them. And I wanted to highlight a few of the folks and what they're doing, because I think it's important for context. So I won't read all this stuff. Rick is here. You can talk to him. He'll go into it, and he'll tell you in way more detail all the great stuff that he's doing. But essentially, Rick's our director of research. He's just focused on how do we improve outcomes? How do we measure outcomes? How do we get better at measuring outcomes? How do we improve or help folks improve outcomes? And how do we bring that into the technology to help all of you benefit from it? He's also doing some cool things with robots. He's working with Avail to really prove that assisted technologies like Avail can materially reduce the amount of time it takes to master skills and materially improve the outcomes in addition to in-person services. So not in lieu of, but in addition to. And so he's doing some really cool stuff there as well, so I'd encourage you to talk to him. So I don't even need to introduce these guys. Dr. Partington and Dr. Mueller, I'd argue they're the leading kind of thinkers with respect to assessments. And they're working on some really cool stuff as well. So you're going to see a lot on the assessment side from us over the next 12 to 18 months, starting with unifying kind of the platform so that you can access the digital version of ABLES and AFLS through one platform. Today they're kind of separate. But what Dr. Partington and Dr. Mueller are really focused on is the next generation of kind of assessment, and that really centers around consolidating, unifying the ABLES assessment, the AFLS assessment, so that we can kind of use them more in harmony, as opposed to say, use the ABLES until it doesn't work and then go to the AFLS. Like, there's opportunities for us to introduce these. It's a little hard to do with two separate platforms, and so they're working through that. They're also working through the SMART assessment. So essentially saying, like, how do we reduce the amount of time it takes to assess an individual, but still get all the benefits of the rigorous assessment that's being done today, and all the kind of history and the research and everything else that comes out of it. So that's a big initiative for us. So it's hard here because I could highlight like so many people, like the CR Institute's doing such great work. And so, but I do want to highlight Cass and Shannon and the work that they're doing because it's super important and super innovative, I think, in a lot of ways. Really focused around kind of the neurodiversity-informed courses, so around assent, around client dignity, and all the feedback we get, like when they go and present, is just so positive about this is what we need, this is the kind of stuff that we need as an industry, and they're out kind of on the leading edge, both developing it and delivering it. And you'll see kind of more of that coming through our CR Institute. And then in addition to that, we have our tool Knowledge Builder, which helps universities kind of train the next generation of BCBAs. And what does that mean? It's essentially tooling to allow for better outcomes as they're kind of, and better pass rates for BCBAs kind of as they're coming through university. And then they've layered on like test prep, which is an awesome product, like awesome. And I think most of you have gone through it. I think a lot of the feedback is the test prep like today is terrible. And so, they took it upon themselves to say, we can do this better, and we can create something that's going to be a better experience and yield better outcomes. And they've just rolled it out. It's being used in universities. We have some providers that are starting to use it because a lot of you are also doing test prep, and it's just awesome. So again, I'm a little bit biased, but I like what they're doing. And then you've got Carrie and Lisa Marie, and again, I could go on, Joanne, who are doing just awesome work around curriculum and kind of what I'd consider the next generation of curriculum, and really kind of from a digital, format and perspective. So that's what Carrie's kind of focused on. Lisa Marie is like super passionate, and she was the founder of Avail, around assistive technology and the impact that can have in the workplace as well as with adults more broadly. And Joanne came to us through our Lifted acquisition, super smart, and she's a BCBA, did ABA therapy, speech therapist, and so she's really kind of thinking about in the education setting, like how can we make products that really make a bigger impact. So again, going back to the slide on the acquisition, everybody except for Cass and Shannon came to us through acquisition. So we were able to bring them in, kind of incorporate them, integrate their products, but now they're having a bigger impact on Central Reach, and as a result, they're having a bigger impact on you and a bigger impact on the industry. And I'm super proud of that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Clark.
My background, but one of the things I've always looked at is data to prove observations, right? So as you think about what's happening in your business, please take a look at all of this and think about how's my business doing in comparison to that, and just look at these as observations that we're making. I have the pleasure of looking at this data from a very raw view, right? 10 months in, looking at the data, reading it, and drawing back some observations and things like that. I think the first observation I'll make today, just for you guys for the future, is contrary to popular belief, the first 3 rows are not reserved for COVID distancing. So you guys can move up tomorrow for fun. All right, this one. So just a little bit about the data that we pulled. We only took customers who had been with Central Reach since 4/1/2021. So you have to be with Central Reach the whole time to make this comparison. So we're not dropping in new customers. We're not taking ones out who have left us. Those who left us, moved on to other solutions, other things going on. They're not in the data either. So it's a very strong comparison to everything up there. The cohorts break down, and we looked at them just at the size of your billings on an annualized rate. So 10 million is one cohort. 1 million through 10 million is second cohort, and 1 million and under is another. So it's about 952, maybe 52 math. And again, we tried to do this to pull out a lot of that COVID data. When you look a little bit further back, COVID had a large impact on the things that were happening in the data, so it was really hard to put that in and then make context. Is that an impact of a global pandemic that we have never seen before since the Spanish flu, or is that where the industry's going? So it was tough, so we pulled all of that out. So jumping into the first one, I think I'm all right on time. We looked at appointments and cancellation rates. One of the biggest things, just from an operator's perspective, is getting people to show up to their appointments is an efficiency, right? If they don't show, then you're back booking them, you're jumping around. What we saw in the data is appointments are going up for this cohort. Everybody's growing. generally speaking, in mass is growing, and cancellations rates are staying the same or going down overall. So you're not seeing people show up. So it's a great thing for a growth perspective for the overall organizations that are using the platform. That's 39% year over year growth, and only about 18% increase in cancellations on a bigger number, right? So it's always going to increase because you're looking at a bigger number, and things like that are going to happen. So a lot more efficiencies are happening within your businesses, driving through getting more appointments, and you're more efficient because you're not rescheduling appointments. On top of that, the services hours are starting to build as well. Overall, each learner you're getting more out of the individual learner, and you're finding more learners. So both, this is a compounding effect overall. 26% total service hours, increase in total service hours delivered, and then at a per learner level, you're doing 14% more over this period of time. Remember, it's only six quarters of time, so 14% increase. You're gonna get to, right, more time spent with a learner, the better the outcome's going to be. It's going to be naturally correlated on top of all the extra things that you guys are doing to grow as businesses. So then when you look at the providers in the clinic, in-clinic is growing very fast. Not sure, we'll show a little bit more data as we break down the cohorts, but in-clinic service hours are going, and you're getting more in clinic. Obviously, there's no drive time, there's things, right? A lot of these things are naturally correlated and will make sense as you look at them, but the trend lines are what everyone should be looking at, right? The trend in up and to the right, and then a flat lower line at in-home. It's much harder. I'm not sure, some of the more recent data would tell us there's a macroeconomic condition going on for gas prices. Some of it will be that COVID, maybe people just don't want to be in their homes anymore, right? There could be a lot of psychological effects, but that's flattening overall. So you're seeing this in-clinic growth, which is really interesting overall. Oop, wrong button. So that's 38% of the hours increased over this time in clinic. Remember, it's the same cohort, so I'm not adding anybody up. So these numbers are just going through the roof. 38% on a large number, right? Those transactions that Chris was talking about, going through the system, 38% of those big numbers are huge numbers of transactions, and only 13% in home. And then as you break that down, we've increased 15% more time with the person in the clinic to only 3% more time at the home, right? So talk about those outcomes, more time, better outcome, all of these things are going to drive together. So now, how's it breaking down in those segments that we talked about? So first and foremost, most of the segments are growing with the exception of the under 1 million. And I think some of the data will explain some of that on the lower end of things. Learners, 12% more in the 10 million plus learners, 14% more in the 1 million to 10 million cohort, and then 8%. So there's more learners in every group. Everybody's acquiring more kids, probably just because of everything that we said. There's a problem of there's more kids than there is ability to service them, so that growth rate's going to come through. But the billable charges really are starting to go. We're showing real big efficiencies in the 10 million plus, in the 12 million, but we're dropping in those billable charges in the under 1 million. So there's a lot of work that we have to do to help this base really rise and climb up. Overall, you're seeing 23% growth, 18% growth, and then a flat growth rate for all of these cohorts. So as we're looking at this, right, we're going to continue to bring back this data. How do you compare to the group? How do you compare to where you're going to be? A lot of the organizations here today are growing faster than wildfire. You're going to be moving up levels, and these are some numbers that really will help you operate the business along with your peers and beat your peers. So where's that in-center versus home? How's that looking? Well, I would assume, not being in the space, but there was a lot of in-home going on during the early stages of COVID, right? In-home was easier, the clinics were shut, there was mask mandates in place, a lot of things in place, a lot of in-home happened, maybe, but since then it's flat. It's flat overall, and look at that uptick, 38% uptick in billable charges in clinic. So your clinics are busy, right? You got to look out into the clinics and say, how do we keep that velocity going, getting one in, creating those positive quality outcomes, but that's where all your business is coming from. 57% of all activity through the CR platform is done in a clinic. If I go back to the beginning, it was 42% was in clinic. There's schools in there, and there's an other category for those who know the system. So this is really just comparing the two big locations. So how does that break down now? And this is where I think some of those correlations and information is going to show. The 10 million clinics is growing. The 1 million to 10 million clinics are growing. We've flatlined on the in-clinic and the under. And for the first month, if you see right there, it's the first time homes dropped to that level. I don't know if that's gas prices. I don't know what that is, right? But we're going to keep looking at it. We can. We can do it. So you're going to help me out in my closing. These are the types of things that we're looking at, right? This community there's so much that we can do to do benchmarking and comparisons. Overall, we have it by state. We have it, at the levels lower, it gets micro and micro, right, as we do it. But yeah, we definitely can.
Did you already say this, but what percentage of your business has clinics?
I don't know. I can get back to you and tell you who is only home versus who's only clinic. I didn't run that number, but we can. Sorry? No.
I think there's a slide with that on there, but it's the majority, I think, yeah,
Okay.
So 42% growth in the centers, 32%. I feel like I'm ignoring that side of the room. I'm going to go over there for a second. And 21% overall. So everyone is growing, right? This is a rapid growing space, but how do we grow? How do you grow quickly in these environments? These are the things that we all got to be asking ourselves. That's why we're here, right? The customer success function in our organization is here to help talk through these things with you. That's what we call customer success leaders. They're there to talk through these things. Let's create hypotheses. Let's test them. Let's talk about that, how this can work for your business overall. There's also a big opportunity, and this is the last slide we have, on your collection rates. And you're doing the work out there in each of these areas. And we're just using BillMax as a comparison, right? BillMax has an advantage over everybody. We only work on our platform, so we're real efficient on it from that standpoint. But if you can take and build on all of that, overall, that's $300 million of extra revenue that you can put right back into your clinics to grow and build more, right? Everyone here who is growing, we're seeing them build on their user population. We're not seeing people take this money and dividending it out to shareholders. We're not seeing any of that. Everyone is out here for that same mission of helping more and putting that dollar and rolling that dollar back in. There's $3 million in just this space, $300 million in just this space if you can bring that up. Doesn't mean you can't do it yourself. 1 point is going to make a difference on all of that, right? Because we're talking at such a large data set, large numbers. Law of large numbers plays out here where it can be really, really beneficial overall. So as we look at this, right, and you go back to the things that Chris talked about at the roadmap and our culture and where we're going, we're trying to start to make real big data-driven decisions. We have products that can help you with data-driven decisions overall. Sorry, I keep hitting the wrong one. So how does that play out into what our themes and our themes are for the product roadmap for the things that we're going, right? The pillars that we're layering on in the future. And Cheryl has I saw Cheryl over there, CPO talk, I think on Thursday, to go in detail on these items. But really those pillars are, how do you unlock that cash flow? In an environment like we're right now, from a macroeconomic standpoint, cash flow is king, right? Rolling that cash back in. How do we increase our margin with countering that margin compression? How do we, with all of these things, smart scheduling, talking about those appointments, running through the parent training overall, performance management, mobile enhancements, data and RCM enhancements. When you go to the next one and maximizing those outcomes, apologize. Woo! Assessments, unlocking the parent and performance management overall, right? How do we drive up those things so we get better outcomes so we can continue this flywheel effect of growth that we have going? Enabling staff retention. Every single customer I've spoken to over the last 11 months talks about staff retention. If you're not, if you don't have retention issues, please help somebody else out with them because everybody's got them, right? We need to retain employees overall. Right now, we're going to do things, designing the mobile for people to be fast, right? Everyone who's entering the market right now wants to be tech-driven, right? It's a tech-driven market, fast, easy, but complete, right? Integrity in the data, integrity in the things that we're doing. Implementing a new UI, we've got to freshen up the UI to make that user interface helpful, faster, smoother, create more efficiencies. Performance management, and then CR Institute, right? Your people want you to lean into them on training and development. Help them get better. Help them deliver a better outcome. So the CR Institute has an amazing outcome on overall retention. And then finally, delivering in that scale, right? We've got to deliver. Security is a huge issue in the market. People are getting hacked all the time. We have so much personal sensitive information in the system. We are constantly focused on security. If you haven't seen it, we've done a lot of security enhancements over the last, let's say, 6 months of pushing new updates in, whether that's multi-factor authentication, making sure people can't password share, things like that, which really just open up. We're gonna do another thing on cross-site forgery. Probably doesn't make a ton of sense unless you're IT in the room, but these are things where we have to close those. And then how do you scale? How do you scale these businesses and drive them upwards with those infrastructure updates? So each of those, Cheryl's here, she'll talk a lot about that next Thursday, so we'll get into that detail if there's interested areas. If there's interested data points, please, thank you again for the comment. This is where we just want to know what should we look at? What should we cut this data on? That's 952, but Chris showed you the numbers. We've got a lot of people using the system, right? So we just kind of time boxed it and people boxed it around that space. We can do a lot with this data to help you guys get better and better and better. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Clay.